Hello. Welcome to An Average American, a podcast where I break down technological topics that affect everyday life. My name is Sergey, and today we're diving into a topic that has taken the world by storm in the past decade: artificial intelligence. You might have noticed that AI is everywhere now. It is writing news articles, helping doctors diagnose diseases, designing video games, and even answering customer service calls. But with this rapid rise of AI, we have to ask some questions. What is AI really? Have we reached artificial general intelligence? Is AI boosting the economy or is it hurting people? Should AI have AI Tsar to help either regulate or promote it? In this episode, we will cover all of these topics and more. So let's get started. To do this topic justice, we have to define what AI is. Artificial intelligence, or AI, isn't a new concept. The term was actually coined in the 50s by Stanford professor John McCarthy, who defined it as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines, meaning computers, of course. Since then, AI has evolved into multiple forms, but it all boils down to computers performing tasks that typically require human intelligence. You can easily think of many of those abilities that humans have, such as talking, recognizing speech, making decisions, designing, or even driving a car. Let's talk about the types of AI, which fits into our overall conversation today. We have narrow AI, or weak AI. That's the predominantly AI we use today. Systems that are trained to perform very specific, narrow in scope tasks. And examples are countless: Tesla autopilot, facial recognition software, stock tracking algorithm, or even conversations with ChatGPT, a product of a company called OpenAI. All these AIs are great and have many capabilities, but they can't easily adapt to tasks outside of their design. However, having said that, if you have a conversation with ChatGPT, you will quickly find out that that so-called AI robot can answer many questions on a huge variety of topics. Then we have what is coined as artificial general intelligence, or AGI. That is the holy grail and the ultimate goal behind all AI research. Develop machines that can reason, learn, and adapt across many different fields of human knowledge, just like a human can. Very recently, maybe even has gone unnoticed the fact that Sam Altman, who is CEO of OpenAI, said that we're starting to see early signs of AGI. And you have to trust him. He's making millions running an AI company. If AGI is supposed to think like a human and learn like a human, I would argue we're already there. I don't feel like we're seeing early signs. I feel like AGI is here and it's here to stay, and it's here to improve as time goes on. Let's go back a little bit and talk about how AI actually acquires its knowledge. And I'm using that entire sentence in air quotes. So let's talk about basics of machine learning as a technology. AI learns through machine learning, or ML, which is a subset of AI that allows computers to recognize patterns in data. Data could mean a whole bunch of things. It could mean text, videos, audio, all of the above. The more data that learning process encounters, the smarter it gets. ML is focused on enabling computers to imitate the way the humans learn, to perform certain tasks autonomously, and to improve their performance and accuracy through continuous experience and continuous exposure to more data, as well as reinforcement of what it has learned. Neural networks is a type of AI that works like a simplified version of a human brain. Even terminology surrounding neural networks is similar to terminology used to describe a brain. Neural network consists of layers of nodes, also called neurons, that process the information. There are multiple layers in machine learning algorithms. There is an input layer that takes the data. Then there are layers, sometimes called hidden layers, that process and refine that data. And finally, there's an output layer that produces the final result. Each node or neuron in the network is connected to others and has certain threshold. If it receives enough information, it activates and passes data forward. The term deep learning simply means there are many layers that process the data. If a network has multiple layers, it's considered deep, which means it is allowed and is capable of recognizing more and more complex patterns in data. There are three types of machine learning. Something called supervised learning, meaning AI is trained, quote unquote trained, using labeled data, meaning data that was already recognized by humans and labeled as such. There is unsupervised learning. AI finds patterns on its own. And there's a reinforcement learning that happens when machine kind of learns through trial and error and is assisted by humans to understand. Most of today's AI breakthroughs come from deep learning, which uses neural networks that mimic, as we mentioned, the way human brain works. If you still remember IBM Watson, which was a big deal over a decade ago, it won the Jeopardy round, Jeopardy challenge in 2011. And it is a good example of such a network. The system used reinforcement learning to learn and adapt an answer or a question, which is a square on the board and how much to wager. So it seems kind of simple, but it is a complex task. Now let's look at ChatGPT to learn a little bit more about machine learning in the modern world. Let's now talk about ChatGPT. GPT in ChatGPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And it describes how ChatGPT works. GPT learns by analyzing large amounts of text scrubbed off the internet. It uses that information to generate responses to questions or commands. GPT can also predict what you're about to type if you're drafting, let's say, an email or a document. It can be very good at answering questions, explaining concepts, helping with various mundane tasks, even write computer code, solve mathematical equations, recognize images, and even creative designs. How does it really work? So what happens is that all this data is processed by the neural networks looking for patterns. If you talk about text, it creates patterns using different words, and it analyzes how close one word relates to another in terms of where they're located inside the text. Now let's talk a little bit about AGI in terms of Turing Test. So if you ever heard of Turing Test, That was one of the earliest questions that was posed about an AI. Can a machine think and act like a human? In 1950, British mathematician Alan Turing proposed Turing Test, which works like this. A human interacts with a machine and another human through text. If the human can't tell which one is a computer and which one is a human, the machine passes the test. For decades, no AI could truly pass this kind of test. And there were multiple attempts. But today, I think that has changed. And I'm basing this argument on my own personal experience. I recently listened to an AI-generated podcast where two AI-generated voices held a full conversation. Granted, the script was produced by a human, but it was so convincing to me that it was not two real people talking that I am now of an opinion that AI is here and AGI is here, and the advances in both are just tremendous. Let's not forget, AI chatbots already passes humans in text-based conversations. If you don't believe me, sign up for a free ChatGPT or Anthropic or any other AI company's account, free account, pick a topic, and hold a conversation with an AI. Ask questions, digest answer, ask follow-up questions. You will have hard time not being convinced that modern AI can easily pass the Turing test. Maybe not on more in-depth or esoteric topics, but certainly for a casual conversation. Why I highlight esoteric topics is because you have to remember that most AIs are trained on essentially what is internet data, written recently or a long time ago by humans. And the topic of conversation is directly proportionate to how frequently humans talk about it. As a result, if you pick an esoteric topic or an esoteric programming language, your results will drastically be less useful. Let's drill a little bit deeper into where we are today. Is AGI already here? As I already stated, I feel very strongly that AGI is here, even though majority of people would disagree with me, saying that it's barely started. AGI is supposed to be an artificial intelligence that can solve complex problems across multiple domains like a human. However, try to find a human that is very well versed in millions of topics that other humans can discuss. You will have a hard time finding such person. I submit that such person simply does not exist. Most humans' knowledge is quite limited. Limited by what they learn, what they do, whom they talk to, and so forth. Think about it this way. ChatGPT can write essays, write and debug code, draft legal documents, generate creative stories and poems and images, and all of that in literally seconds. Can a human do that? I don't think so. AI can easily beat human champions in complex strategy games like Go. So if AGI means a system that can handle increasingly complex tasks, I feel like we're here. You don't believe me? Try what I just said. Modern AI models are trained on huge amounts of data. And let's go back for a second and talk about what I mean by AI model. It's essentially a neural network produced result that is created through pre-training by ingesting gigabytes of text or images or voice that is available across the entire internet, covering almost any written topic. What can AI do? AI models can perform a wide range of tasks. A lot of them I already mentioned. It's very good at certain tasks, such as summarizing text or speech, translating from one language to another language, making decisions on simple concepts, assisting in customer support by ingesting previous questions and answers that were given, interacting with other systems, and you can see AI robot companies starting up where AI can manipulate physical world. There are AIs that create videos now, combining both text and images. Types of AI inputs and really outputs are called modalities. And some models are multi-modal, meaning they can handle text and images and videos. When it comes to languages, English is the dominant language for AI training data because it is the dominant language of the internet. But large language models can talk in variety of languages. AI can also translate between natural language and programming language. I use that skill periodically, definitely not every day, but I do. And it can also reverse engineer that, given the code that can explain the code. Instructability is one of the important concepts when it comes to AIs. What that means is how efficiently AI can learn from prompts. And what is a prompt? Prompt is essentially a human phrasing a question. If you provide more background, you will likely get a better answer. As a result, AI doesn't just rely on pre-training, even though it's a huge part of building an AI model. It can also learn from context in real time. It can learn from your questions, from the answers. And those are called techniques, prompt techniques. And you have a few, I'm going to mention a couple. One is a few shot learning. Few shots meaning you take a few attempts or a few examples and let AI learn from that and infer the information by combining it with pre-training. And there is something called zero shot learn. AI understands and completes a completely new task just from the description without any examples. Now I would like to jump in and talk about how AI is changing our world in real time. AI has started to affect human jobs. Is it replacing millions of jobs? Not today. But you can definitely read in news, story after story, as companies invest more into AI, they slowly start to replace humans with software. It happens in white-collar jobs, it happens in blue-collar jobs. Most recently, SoftBank, which is one of the sponsors of a big investment into Starlink project by OpenAI, it's a Japanese SoftBank, it's investing $3 billion a year into AI-powered automation. And the aim is to replace or enhance millions of office jobs. A customer support company recently admitted that it has reduced its workforce after deploying AI chatbots. I don't want to mention an article or a company, but I read about it. I also want to talk about my own personal experience at my work. Our company signed up for a GitHub Copilot license a little over a year ago, and I have used it since the pilot days. I feel like GitHub Copilot makes me a better developer. Can it replace me? I don't think so, at least not today. It's hard to envision what a future, let's say in 50 years, looks like. But sometimes it can complete one statement for me, one line of code. Sometimes it can create the entire function with many lines of code for me. And what it does, it makes me more efficient. And as I told my boss, it is just a delightful experience for me to work with GitHub Copilot while I'm writing code. Is it always correct? Not even close. But it still makes me a better developer. Now I want to spend a few minutes specifically talking about jobs. If you want to, for yourself, you can read Anthropic's, which is one of the big AI companies' job survey findings. The bottom line is, from me reading that survey, that AI is changing the way people work. Anthropic created what's called an economic index to track the impact on jobs and economy by AI over time. The report analyzes millions of AI interactions of Anthropic customers to understand how AI is being used by a variety of professionals. I will summarize just the key findings. AI is mostly used in software development and technical writing. That doesn't mean that's all it does, but it just means that the lion's share, which is still significantly less than 50% of AI, is used for those tasks. 36% of responders said that jobs use UI to complete at least 25% of their tasks, while 4% of jobs use AI for 75 or more tasks. AI is more often used to assist, not replace humans. And you can say today that most people will take comfort in that knowledge. But again, if you think down the road, is that going to stay the case? I will let you decide. I will express my own opinion in the conclusion of this podcast. The most of the common AI users are mid to high wage jobs, such as programmers or analysts, while use of AI in low paying jobs is significantly lower. Anthropic is sharing its data so that researchers and politicians and policymakers, more specifically, can better understand AI's effects and better plan for the future. A lot of people dwell on the negatives. I'm not one of them. I feel like AI brings huge number of economic benefits, especially to America, where it's commonplace. I don't know about other countries, so I can't educationally talk about it. It's changing the economy in good ways. It introduces productivity gains. Sometimes you hear numbers like 50% more productive. In my experience with GitHub Copilot, I wouldn't say that that's the case. I think the real number is maybe 10%. But think of it this way. 10% productivity increase across a large portion of the workforce should yield tremendous benefits for the society as a whole. It can also assist in reshoring manufacturing, meaning bringing some of the manufacturing jobs back to the United States, assisted by AI, to make them a little bit cheaper, which will provide an added benefit and maybe will introduce less of an inflation that would typically be present when you shift jobs from low wage workers to higher wage by bringing them from more poor countries of the world to the United States. Then there is an added benefit of creating completely new jobs that never existed before. You can think of people such as prompt engineers, AI trainers that assist in reinforcement learning or providing pre-trained data with known results, AI ethics analysts or economists. But do these new jobs replace the old ones being lost? That is the real question. I feel personally that it is inevitable that AI will displace some jobs currently performed by humans. I keep periodically reading about companies admitting they're deploying AI systems that affect their workforce. As a society, we have to be aware that humans will help, with help of AI, will greatly improve their productivity. And companies, however, do not need the ever-increasing productivity. There are only so many widgets that they need to produce to meet the demand. As a result, society as a whole likely need to start taking steps to figure out what to do with displaced workers. The same happened many times in the past. For example, people in early days of phones that were connecting two phone lines to facilitate the conversation were eventually replaced by hardware and software. The same could be told about horses and buggies replaced by cars. However, in the past, 100 years ago, in those examples of phones and cars, those technological advances occurred over decades. And therefore, the timeline allowed society to adjust. Yes, phone operators were lost, but other jobs were created. When I looked at what happened with AI in the past decade, I feel like I am seeing neck-breaking speed of AI advances. And it doesn't really fit that mold of slowly adjusting. It is already displacing workers only a few years since what truly is an OpenAI first decent model came into the marketplace. And every year, and sometimes multiple times a year, you see them publishing AI models with ever-increasing capabilities. If you look at jobs in IT, for example, and as I mentioned, IT workers are the highest percentage across all industries that use AI. And the number of jobs posting in IT in the past 5 years or so, ever since maybe 2022, 2021 timeframe, started to decrease. And the number of layoffs are starting to become larger. You be the judge if those are related to COVID spike in hiring or AI. Personally, I have a hard time distinguishing one from the other. I do not want to dwell on the negative. AI can and is making human lives better. It improves productivity. It raises the GDP of this country. Many people every day use it to do mundane tasks or more complicated tasks. AI finds its way into many previously uniquely human tasks, such as medicine or creative writing. It is hard to overestimate the huge impact this technology will have on human lives, even in the near term, even if you think about the next 5 years. I use AI every day at work and at home, and I love using it. Let's talk a little bit about the dark side of AI. I already mentioned a few negative impacts on society. Widespread job displacement is not there yet. I personally believe that time is coming. Not in the next few years, but certainly in the next few decades. AI is not all roses either. You have to remember that AI learned a lot of information by scrubbing it off the internet. And if you think that all internet information is without bias and completely objective, I think you're kidding yourself. As a result, these biases and unpopular views are also used to train ChatGPT. Yes, OpenAI takes a lot of steps trying to make ChatGPT safer for human consumption. But is it possible to completely eliminate the biases and hatred that exists on the internet? I have my doubts. Some of the key concepts I already mentioned. Algorithmic bias. It could perpetuate negative opinions about certain humans. Job displacement, self-explanatory. There are some privacy concerns where vast amount of personal information that could be collected by AI causes concerns about surveillance. Deepfakes, you already see those. AI is so good at creating images, videos, that sometimes it's very hard to distinguish a real photo from a fake one. There is some lack of transparency. You can't always track an answer AI gives you to a question to a specific source. It is prone to some amount of what's called hallucinations, where a fake data is produced by AI, is presented like real facts. There are some social manipulations. I have zero doubt that politicians will use AI to manipulate voters. You could create very powerful weapons that are triggered by AI and could make mistakes. You could also argue that when you have a question and you can ask AI to give you an answer, it may decrease the need for humans to think critically and analyze facts. You can have some ethical questions where AI could write a book and somebody would publish it on their own. Kind of unethical. Do we need regulation and oversight? Biden administration kind of started on that, but then Trump administration scaled that down. We're still yet to see what kind of regulation is needed for AI. Another interesting topic would be public education. Do we need to raise awareness about potential risks and benefits of using AI responsibly to educate our kids? Interesting question. Let's spend a couple of minutes on regulation. So there is so-called AI Tsar in Trump administration, who is David Sachs. He is a venture capitalist. And I'm a little biased to say I think he has a vested interest in AI companies making a ton of money, because I bet he's heavily invested in AI companies as a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. So I don't know if I want to trust him too much. But the other question is, do we even need AI Tsar, and what kind of regulations do we need? European countries are definitely further ahead of us in terms of regulating AI. But I also feel that with many AI models being open source, available to everybody, with the computational resources available being virtually unlimited in this country, you can't really put AI back in a bag. I feel like it is inevitable that there will be negative impacts on AI. There will be nefarious players in the business who are going to use AI to scam people. But truly, I feel like it's impossible for us to have an efficient regulation. So personally, I'm very skeptical in regulating AI. I just don't think it's possible. And I would rather see that industry develop and blossom and revisit the regulation maybe in some number of years. Today, I feel like it's kind of unnecessary. So let's conclude this. What I'm hopeful is a decent conversation about AI. We might revisit the topic one day. What I would say in summary is that the world overall is changing to the better because of AI. It makes people more productive. As a result, GDP will grow. As a result of that, society as a whole benefits. Are some people gonna be left out of that progress? Inevitable, just like with any other new technology. There will be winners and losers. But I strongly believe the number of winners will be much higher. Do we need to prepare for some amount of job displacement? Yes, I strongly believe policymakers need to consider some advances in society to help displaced jobs to be replenished somehow, or at least help people who lose jobs to get training in another industry. All in all, I'm very bullish on AI. Thank you very much for listening. I will talk to you next week. Goodbye.